book review for you of Roar by Cora Carmack. And this book has a really cool premise. It's YA fantasy, and the premise is that Princess Aurora lives in a land where storms basically are like super violent and tear apart the cities. And so the rulers of the different kingdoms are known as stormlings, and they're born with like storm magic, and they can also acquire storm hearts, which storm hearts help them to, they're the heart of the storm, and they help them control magic. The only problem is that Aurora wasn't born with any storm magic, and she's the next heir. So the story starts off with her forming a like treaty marriage alliance with another kingdom, and with a prince named Cassius, who has lots of storm hearts and lots of like magical affinities for the storms. And then basically what happens is Cassius is kind of shady. He has some Darkling vibes, and basically Aurora finds out he's going to this black market, and she discovers that magic is sold and she didn't know. So all of a sudden she's like, wait a second, there's another option besides marrying this shady guy who kind of manipulates me. And so she ends up running away temporarily and joining some Stormhunters. And in the Stormhunters, she's kind of learning as she goes, and they're kind of, I don't know, they kind of remind me of like the Dregs, only because it's a tight-knit group, not because necessarily of personalities, although Jinx might be kind of similar to Inej. Jinx in this story is an Earth Witch, and she's kind of cool. And then there's also Nova, who's not in this group, but is one of Aurora's childhood friends, who has some magic of her own. And the story is kind of complex in that within a chapter there will be a page break, and it's all third person, but it might change from third person Aurora to third person Cassius to third person Nova to third person Locke, who is the Stormhunter who she initially meets, and who is kind of like, he's like the next in line to lead the group. There's an elder in the group named Duke, but he's kind of older, so Locke is kind of, the one in charge, like right beneath him, sort of. So it's really complicated, and that's a little bit jarring just because it's happening within a chapter. Overall, I really loved the premise of this book, and the things that are called, like fog is called fog, but like lightning is called skyfire, and thunderstorms are thunderstorms, but like, twisters are tornadoes, and they have some different names for some of the different types of natural disasters and storms. But I wanted to love this book really badly. I was super excited when I heard about it because it kind of reminded me of Grishaverse, and I was super excited, and I was like, ooh, a new fandom to be part of. And basically though, like, it missed the mark for me, and the primary reason it missed the mark for me is if I do not like the protagonist in a story, I have a really difficult time getting on board. And the reason that I didn't like the protagonist in the story is I thought she was weak, and I thought that she was incredibly whiny. And I was kind of having Tessa Gray flashbacks, and if you've seen my reviews of the Infernal Devices, you know that Tessa was not my favorite protagonist. And I really don't like the trope of the princess like having no clue about her kingdom. Like, I get that you're sheltered possibly, but like, you're the freaking princess. I feel like it's your responsibility to know what's going on in your kingdom, and not just taking people's word at face value, especially if you're older, like, and you're about to take the throne. Like, you need to know what's going on in your kingdom, not just sit in your carriage during the parade and like wave at everybody. So I'm kind of over that trope. Like, I don't know, I'm not into it anymore. Like, the clueless princess who's shocked to realize that there's magic being sold in her kingdom. That's kind of strange to me. And the other trope I don't like that happens in here is between Locke and Aurora. And Aurora goes by multiple names. She goes by Aurora because she's the princess, Aurora to her friends, and then she gives a false name when she meets the Stormhunters and goes by Roar. So, like, okay. But between her and Locke, they kind of have this like love-hate relationship. Basically, it's kind of insta-love, and they both like each other, but they both act mean to each other because they don't want to get close to the other one. And I'm kind of over that too. Like, it's kind of immature, and I get that Aurora's only 18. We really don't have an age on Locke. We just know he's a little bit older than her. And maybe that's reflective of the age. I mean, I'm a little older than that, like double that age. So maybe I'm just kind of over it, but I don't like it. But one thing I will say is in some reviews I read that, you know, and most of this book overall has like a 4, as of the time of this video, it's got like 4 stars on average on Goodreads. But some of the reviews were critical of Locke. Okay, they say Cassius is possessive, and in the beginning, yeah, he acts that way, and he's like a darkling type, so it fits the role. But they were saying that Locke is possessive. Sure, but if you're going to say that, Aurora is just as possessive. So if you're going to take quotes out of context showing that Locke is possessive, then you need to take quotes out of context showing that Aurora is possessive as well. Because they both have the same thoughts. Oh, he's mine. Oh, she's mine. Oh, I want him. I don't want anybody else to have him. Oh, I want her. I don't want anybody else to have her. You know, and they both have, like, the exact same thoughts. There's ownership there. And I'm okay with that personally because I feel like, you know, what's love without passion? It's vanilla. And as much as I love the smell of vanilla and a good vanilla ice cream cone, I don't want my relationships to be vanilla. Just saying. So I want them to have sprinkles, and sprinkles are passion. So I'm okay with that. That is not something that bothers me. Do note that Cora Carmack typically writes adult romance, according to the biography in here. There's really nothing too racy. I mean, it's kind of sexy a little bit, but there's nothing too racy in here. And it really ends on a cliffhanger. Basically, the entire book is setting up for the next book, which leads me to my rating. I bumped it down to 3 stars because it's definitely not a 4-star read to me, but I would give it like 3.5. Because I couldn't connect with Aurora, I often found my mind wandering. I think it took me like 9 days to read this book, and it's not that long. If I'm really into a book, it's usually 2 to 3 days, 3 to 4 days for me to read it. If I'm really into a book and need to shit out the world, I can do like a day, 2 days. So I had a really hard time just getting into this, and Aurora still hasn't told the Stormhunters who she is by the time the book ends, and I kind of have issue with that. A couple characters kind of like, their perspective kind of like fell off. Like, Nova doesn't have a piece for a good portion of the last maybe like quarter of the book. And it's kind of like, well, why are you building her up and then you're not like giving her a voice? So that's kind of an issue. So overall for me, this was 3.5 out of 5. No idea if I'm going to read the next book. You know, I basically want to see when the synopsis comes out and see people's reactions before I decide if I'm going to read it or not. Because if I'm going to read it, like, Aurora needs to get her shit together, basically. And that's kind of where I'm at on this. So you might like this if you're more tolerant of some of the things I mentioned that I don't like. It's a totally interesting concept, and that's really fun. And I don't know. I mean, read it for yourself, I guess, to determine if you would like this or not. In the meanwhile, happy reading.